The safe room had lived up to its name. Lit by amber lamps, we found multiple stale and hard beds surrounded by infuriatingly locked doors that, by Glimmer's reading, led to an armory and a food locker. After the canteen in the stable, I was considering it unlikely that such food would still be edible anyways. Trotting ahead of me, Glimmerlight flopped herself down atop one of the bunks, sending a small shockwave of stored dust flapping in all directions. Finally off her hooves, I heard her sigh deeply, looking for all the world that she might fall asleep on the spot. Nervously, I trotted onward, checking the far side of the room for, yes, the exit tunnel that would lead us to the outside once things quieted down. Not to mention give us a moment to catch our breath. "Here, Murky, lie down. Rest a minute." Glimmerlight tapped the bunk beside her, which I obediently hopped up onto and settled upon. Feeling my back muscles and whip marks ache and sting, I slid off my saddlebag and pulled the goggles from my face. Brimstone had been a topic avoided. Glimmerlight was insistent about his safety while I simply didn't know what to even say. This was all so alien to me. Ponies caring for me, fighting for me, being so far outside the wall and hunted down during an escape attempt? When I had run for the wall, I never imagined this sort of reality. In my mind, it was me running, and running forever, and outstripping the chains that bound me. But the reality was harsh, unromantic, and full of twisting turns that bounced me from encounter to encounter without any downtime or chance to properly think. No long planning, no idea that survived the actual execution. It was just instinct and reaction mixed with cold, unrelenting luck and chance. The idea that I had once sat in Whiplash's storage room, planning my eventual grand escape, felt childlike and far away. This was real. Real was more tiring than I'd ever dreamt. Glimmerlight seemed to doze for a few minutes at a time, her breathing finally steadying. She had thrown her robes off in the heat of exhaustion once arriving, leaving them crumpled in a heap below her. I lay upon my side, gently easing my sore wing under me, and just watched her. The pony who ruffled my mane, who hugged and smiled at me, who reassured and cared, who had fought to save my life. Others had done some of those, but more and more I was feeling a connection to Glimmerlight, like a friend. But not all my mind accepted it. Slaves didn't have friends. My very presence here was a slight against my place in life if I listened to the deeper, darker areas of my own thoughts. The wall and my orders were my boundaries, but now I was across them. Upon my flank I felt my cutie mark almost tingle in an effort to remind me, instructing me to wander off and leave her that I might return to the safe keeping of those who would guide me and tell me what to do, rather than face the uncompromising wastes. If I apologized enough to Protégé, maybe... Shaking my head violently, almost butting my forehead against the pillows, I fought them down. That was just fear talking. The fear of being caught and killed before I could do anything I wanted with life. My life. The one I'd been denied for how long? Oh, goddesses, I wished I knew how old I actually was. I didn't even know my birthday. I had once been ordered to clear out of the barn and sleep with the Brahmin in the rock farm because they'd wanted to use it for a party in my master's honor. His birthday. I'd snuck out and crept to one of the windows, glancing in at him and his family that owned me, getting drunk and laughing a lot. Maybe when I got out and found my mother, she could tell me when mine was. I did kinda really want to have a birthday someday. Just once. I wished I could feel the same urge for freedom that little Pip no doubt had felt. Something to boost me along to finish and finally escape the bonds that were imprinted upon my very side. My eyes turned back to Glimmerlight. She wore a small smile as she settled, not sleeping, but eyes closed all the same. What kept her so free and willing? What drove her? Perhaps Protégé had answered for me long ago. She knew freedom. That wasn't all, though. Slaves in Philadelphia bullied me, stomped on me, stole my food, and called me things like runt. Mocking noises of them screaming how I would die in the pit still disturbed my slumbers. But she had remained nice and caring. Even the best ponies had been broken by Philadelphia. Flippybit had his prejudices made all the more intense by the ignorance of slavery under Red Eye. Even I had almost stooped to stealing from a sick mare. But not Glimmer, staring at her cutie mark of the 3 memory orbs, each of them glinting through the muck and old wounds that any slave carried after time in Philadelphia. I began to see why. They were her key. Being able to revisit your free days, the good times. That must certainly help. Murky, not to knock you down, but I think I'm a little old for you. Blinking, I snapped back to reality. Blushing, I drew my eyes away from her flank. No, cutie mark! Her cutie mark! And bit my lip while seeing her snorting with laughter. Was she just winding me up? Oh, your cutie mark, it just makes me wish I could, you know? Reaching between the 2 bunks, she again ruffled my mane with a hoof and giggled. I know. And there are so many ways I could twist that sentence, but I don't think you have it in you. Well, until you get some charcoal in your mouth, anyways. She winked. I blushed. Which reminds me, I've not had a chance to really get a glance at that book of yours. Mind if I take a look with you? It'll give us something to take our minds off, you know. Well, she hadn't ever done anything but support me before. Groaning as stiff and painful joints cracked and ached, I pulled over my saddlebag and yanked out my treasured journal. Glimmerlight rolled off her bunk to sit beside mine as I placed it beside me and opened some of my pictures from a few days ago. I saw her frown as she saw me lying dead in the pit, the last image I had ever drew before the mare gave me the idea to set my mind free. Flicking from page to page, Glimmerlight reminded me of that mare with the way she just accepted everything, even down to the little snicker and sideways glance at, some of my pictures. Careful what you draw, Murky. You're making me want to grab a mare the moment we get out of here. Chuckling, she winked and continued. I didn't know if she was just being nice or genuinely did like them, but I felt settled enough to leave her to read through it. Shifting off my bed, I began to trot around the little safe room. It was cramped. Nothing was there without an express purpose. In an appreciative nod, I rather enjoyed the concept of a bin that doubled as a chair when its lid was down. Only Glimmerlight's confused glance was enough to make me stop flipping it up and down by pressing my hoof on the pedal. What? It was good! Seeing her settle down and stare more longingly at the drawing I'd done of her being watched over by Brimstone, I gave her some space by moving into the bathroom. Barely 4 feet by 4 feet. It was tiny. I didn't need to use it, really, but it was the only separate room. Nosing around, I cracked open the butterfly case within, finding little but bandages that fell apart in my hooves, and a small needle. Memory flickered. I'd seen this before. What was it called? Medias? I pulled it carefully into a leg pocket and turned to a mirror. Throughout my life, mirrors had been nothing but a reminder and crushing visual sight of myself, but it had always been tempered. I knew I was a dirty, weak, and sick little slave. Now, when I could think clearer, oh goddesses, what had my life done to me? Before me, just above the low sink, I saw a scrawny, scarred little buck, his coat so coated in rubbish, mud, blood, and rotten juices from the stable orchard that it barely resembled any singular color anymore. My mane and tail had bits in them, stained in a dozen different ways, just like the, by now, ripped and blood-stained fleece and filthy, dark red bandages around my shoulder. But it was the health of my body, drawn, almost skeletal, and covered in rad sores on my muzzle and hind legs. The eyes that stared back were not the eyes of the free pony I felt I should be. They looked terrified, out of place, and showed the image of a pony about to crack and run for the nearest thing that would tell him what to do or how to live. Sunken into dark sockets and red with tiredness, I could see my own pupils shaking, see the edges tearing up as he saw his own cutie mark in the mirror that I had to look away. Quivering and sobbing, I tried the sink and got a paltry trickle of brown water. Splashing it into my face, I scrubbed as best I could. Maybe if I scrubbed hard enough, I could wipe away the slave, show the real pony I was supposed to be. The water was tepid, stinging my rad sores and small cuts I hadn't even realized I had. Time lost all meaning as I just sat and kept trying. Every time I looked up at my soaked and dripping face, I only saw myself looking more desperate and more pathetic than before. I knew I'd have to try really hard now to get it all off. Get rid of all the blood. Get rid of all the dirt of the place that hurt me. Get rid of all of it. I wanted rid of it all. Coughing and spluttering, I finally leaned over the bowl of the sink, not sure which was the water and which was my own tears. That's all I could do. Cry. I couldn't help any pony. I wasn't a hero like Little Pip, strong like Brimstone, smart like Protégé, or as resourceful as Glimmerlight. Somehow every time I did anything good, it all twisted in on itself within minutes. I just want to do something right. You have. Glancing back up, I saw Glimmerlight in the mirror behind me at the door. You got out here. You saved my life and Brimstone's life many times. More than he'd admit. You are a pony that matters, Murky. Now come here. Her horns sparked, flared, and immediately failed. Straining, it popped back into life just enough to pull a small towel from the top shelf to her hoof, before spluttering and imploding the spell with a brief shot of light. Dampening the towel, she sat and wiped my tears. You ever have any siblings, Murky? I don't know. 6 of them maybe, if my name says anything. But I don't remember any of them. My mom never mentioned any, so I assumed they'd been sold. Or maybe there wasn't any. I don't know. The towel was coming off filthy on each rub. I felt her firmly wipe it around my eyes, avoiding all my sores. Her voice was quiet and comforting. I never had any, but there was one little initiate back at Buckland Cross. He used to hang out with me because the others kept picking on him. They called him Safety Catch because he had a habit of leaving his on while at the range. Eventually it got so bad he started forgetting who he was, started using the name himself. Forgot all the good things he could do, like strip an energy weapon faster than I could strip some pony's robes if we got some alone time. I couldn't help it. I lightly chuckled. She was so carefree, overriding my sadness with sheer audacity. Yet her voice turned poignant. Thought he was useless, you see. He used to get so worked up, saying he didn't matter. Didn't even remember that he'd scored top marks in the tests my pops set up for us. But the day he actually became a scribe and got the badge, well, he remembered. Saw what he was as soon as he looked in the mirror. That he was a smart pony. The towel dabbed under the water again, before it seemed to die entirely and sputtered out. Pulling tightly on my cheeks, she kept cleaning before almost too firmly rubbing my forehead with it, biting her own lip as she did so. I winced as I felt her pull on my mane with it, as though wringing it out. So I guess what I'm saying is, we can forget ourselves as it all piles up, but if some pony can just show us what still lies beneath it, perhaps it'll help a little. Dropping the towel, she held her hooves on either side of my face. He was like a little brother for a while, really. Probably the only reason I wasn't known simply as that mare who drinks far too much at ceremonies. My sense of humor does exaggerate myself a little sometimes. Almost hypnotized, my head was turned as I looked back in the mirror again. Green and blonde. My coat's color, a gentle green, lighter than I'd ever expected it to be. My mane, I'd come to think of it as a light brown, but it was actually blonde under it all light and fluffy. The line between the dirt and what she had cleaned was sudden as a fence. In reality, it looked a little silly. The front of my face all clean for once, with some strands of my mane free of debris and dirt, but it gradually spread in my imagination. The artistic side of my mind filled in the blanks and let those borders expand to look at a colt standing with innocent little wide eyes filled with tears, my 2 stubby little wings flapping, Gasping, I could see nothing but what the mirror in the fun farm had shown me. I had almost forgotten the mirror house and the strange sight. The little slave yet to acquire a life's worth of dirt and grime that would mar his appearance as much as it would mar his dreams. Not seconds later, I was wrenched out by merely blinking, breaking my daydream. Tears dripped from my face, but landed upon a small smile as I turned back to Glimmerlight. Glim? Yeah, Murky? You keep helping me, making me see the right things. I don't think I'd have made it this far without you. We all help each other. I shook my head. No, I mean, with me being me, trying to work out what I am, who I am, what kind of pony I am beneath the years of being nothing but a slave. You keep guiding me, almost being there for me. I know it's only been a little while since we've known each other, but... Leaning down, she wiped away my wet mane from my face. But what? Well, a mayor once told me we shouldn't forget or ignore the good when it comes, no matter how short a time it takes. You said you saw that buck like a little brother, right? I wanted to ask. Biting my lip, I looked away, feeling unfathomably embarrassed. Could you ever see me like that? Because I think I, sort of see you like the big sister I wished I always had around. A brief period of silence reigned as Glimmerlight just looked down at me, before gently she pulled me close. Her impetuous embrace stopped only by concern for my wound, but her head leaned against mine, and in that moment I felt relief beyond words. Tell the truth, I was kind of hoping you'd say that, because that's how I was beginning to think of you too. We can't take time for granted. Days could be years to slaves, Murky. We take who and what we can get, so yes. Within the underground room, amidst an escape attempt that could or could not succeed still, there was at least one life-defining moment to remember. Family need not be by blood. Yes, I will be your big sister, best friend forever. I'd like that. There was a brief moment, just allowing me to smile and hold on to the best pony I'd ever met. For about a minute, we simply sat within the safe room, between the bathroom and main room, just permitting the moment. Eventually she snickered, leaning back, her eyebrows narrowed and lowered. But you do know what little brothers get, don't you? She grinned. I just raised an eyebrow. I hadn't even had a sibling nearby to know. What did little brothers get?
Noogies!
No, what are... Wait, no! Before I could react, she had me in a virtual headlock, rubbing her hoof in my mane vigorously. I squirmed as best I could while injured, laughing and squealing in equal amounts to try and get her to stop, waving my front legs to try.